Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much indeed for joining us on this. I'm calling it a panel discussion rather than a webinar, more of a peer-to-peer discussion group, something that certainly I was talking about this with Nick a bit earlier, would be something that we'd quite like to do a little bit more of in the future. I think they prove to be very useful, and a chance for you to ask us questions as much as us to be able to share with you, rather than reading yet more bulletins, which I know there have been quite a lot of late, but nonetheless all containing lots of information. So welcome all. This is just the eve before the press launch of the our Classic Method campaign. And so we felt it was really important to just update members on what's going on, what's happening from now, and an opportunity really to talk a little bit more in depth about how we've got to this point. It's obviously been an extraordinary year, and why we've proceeded with the Classic Hallmark, which we're really excited about, and we know that a good number of members are as well, which is wonderful. So I'm joined tonight with two fellow panelists. So if I can introduce Nick Wenman, I'm sure you know both very well indeed. Nick Wenman, who, as you know, is from Albury Vineyard. He's also a board director, so he's going to be sporting two hats tonight. And also Douglas Jacobson from Brucey Jacobson, who is one of the members who actually is going to be adopting the hallmark in the near future. And we just thought it was really important for you know, a member to talk a little bit more about sort of what's involved them, what's engaged them as well, so that you can ask questions of him and of Nick as well. So what we'll do, I think, actually, is if we kick off straight away, I'm going to hand over to Nick first. I'm going to speak a little bit about the sort of nuts and bolts of how things are progressing, and we'll bring Douglas in as well to talk too. We're recording this, by the way, so anybody who doesn't make it, you know, will have a chance to look at it, because we've had a good number of people sign up tonight, which is lovely. But anyway, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Nick, if that's okay, Nick. Over to you to talk a little bit about the background of it all.
Well, good evening, everybody. I hope your harvest has gone well or is still going well. As Julia said, I'm joined the board, the WineGB board, earlier this year as a Group A director. Most of you will know me as the owner of Albury Organic Vineyard. But since I joined the board, I've been working really closely with Julia on the WineGB marketing programme. And I'd just like to sort of recap a little bit on what's happened over the last 6 months. Julia and the team, in my view, have successfully implemented some really exciting initiatives to help members sell their wine during what's been an extremely challenging period for all of us. We now have, I'm pleased to say, a strategic marketing plan that's been agreed by the board, and initiatives such as Shop Local, English Wine Nights, English Wine Week, and the WineGB Awards have all been a huge success, as have, I think, the regular marketing bulletins and webinars. We've also made significant progress in trade and consumer awareness through social media, and a Christmas campaign with the aim of increasing consumer awareness will be launched in November. More about that later. In my capacity as director of WineGB, I felt it was important to say a few words of introduction to the Great British Classic Method, which is really the next key initiative in our marketing strategy. And as Julia has said, is being launched to the press tomorrow. You will hear more about our plans from Julia, but I'd like to say the main objective of the campaign is to differentiate our traditional method quality sparkling wines from other methods of production, but in so doing, creating a halo brand for all of our wines. We believe that this is key in maintaining a price premium for what will be known as our classic method wines, and is also a key element of achieving our overall vision, which, by the way, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is to establish Great Britain as a sustainable wine region of world renown, recognized and celebrated for the quality of its wines and visitor experiences. Now, the Classic Method project was born some 18 months ago when the board agreed that there should be a review of strategic marketing. A team was formed and led by Dominic Buckwell, who, together with Mike Paul and others, following consultation with the membership, concluded, amongst other things, that we should differentiate our traditional method sparkling wines as our premium quality brand. A project to achieve this was approved by the board last year, and following a competitive procurement process, Sarah Abbott of Swirl was appointed to devise and implement a campaign to achieve this objective. Unfortunately, COVID delayed the project and it was put on hold at the beginning of the year. But in recognition that this was a key element in achieving our vision, the board agreed in May this year to continue with the programme. Julia, Sarah and others have put in a huge amount of effort during the last few months to bring this campaign to life. We're very excited about it. We believe it's a key building block for the successful future of our industry and comes at a pivotal time in our development. That's it from me for the moment. More than happy to answer questions at the end of the webinar. But for the meantime, I'm going to hand back to Julia. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nick. I hope that just sort of sets the scene. I'm sure that some of you might have attended the webinar that featured Sarah Abbott, who incidentally sent her apologies tonight. She's preparing for the press conference tomorrow, but actually more importantly, having a COVID test tonight, so wasn't able to join us. The webinar, incidentally, is on the members area of the website. It's from the 20th of August, and it actually outlines a lot of the background about how, about the work that she did and how she progressed that far. I'm just going to share the screen just very, very briefly, if I can manage that. There we go. There we go. I've just got sort of very few slides, just really to reiterate what Nick said. Really, we saw this classic method campaign really falling into sort of three different parts. It's a very complex subject, and I should add that really what the work we've done this year has really been setting the foundations of what we see as being a longer term aim to really embed classic method and the differentiation and championing of our sparkling wines as our halo brands, but significantly to ensure that it sort of highlights the growing diversity that we have in all our wines in this wonderful country of ours. We started off with the messaging hierarchy. So those of you that actually saw the method that Sarah applied, this is actually really important to our starting point. She was looking at what kind of naming we should look at in terms of how we identify the traditional method sparkling wines that we produce. And it brought in a much, much bigger topic, which as part of our marketing strategy, we always said we were going to set out to do, which is to how we bring in those great words, Great Britain, British, apart as well as English and Welsh, because those are really very significant to and increasingly significant to our work. Of course, we're Wines of Great Britain. We use that that naming already. We've got WineGB. We have the WineGB Awards and all the rest of it. So how do we start integrating this a little bit more? So this was really a very good starting point, and you will see more of this as we build a toolkit around this. Really just as a guideline for people, because I know that a lot of people prefer still the term English sparkling wine, but particularly those wines that are being exported. Great Britain and British wines are used a lot more and have a very high value really to many, and increasingly with the consumer as well. So that was really our starting point. And then how did we sort of get to the classic method? And that was really where classic method was born. So classic method really is what we're going to be saying is our reference to the traditional method sparkling wines from here on in. The third element was adding value, as I put it here, to our PDO sparkling wines through the use of a hallmark, a device, and some of you will have seen examples of that in the last webinar, and I'll share those a little bit more with you as we go along. Oh, those are them. I'm going to stop that for the moment because we'll be moving on to the hallmark a little bit later. Just a very short few words about why we chose Sarah Abbott, because I think this is really important. Sarah, as a Master of Wine, some of you will know as well, but her expertise really as a marketeer lies in bringing emerging regions to market in the UK. And the start point always for her is to go to the trade and the press, because they are our hand sellers. They are our champions. They are our people who are articulating to their customers and their consumers. Not unsurprisingly, a consumer campaign at this stage, or really at any stage, but an all-out consumer campaign demands an enormous amount of investment and resources, and that's not something that WineGB has. but we have ways of reaching the consumer, and the first point of contact is via the trade and press. So really just to outline a little bit about what's going to be happening tomorrow and beyond. So tomorrow morning, there's going to be a very brief virtual press conference to the key trade and the key trade press. So that would be publications such as the Drinks Business, Harper's, Imbibe, Drinks Retailing News, and a number of others. And we're really just going to explain how classic method is now going to be our term of reference, and how we're going to be presenting that both to the trade and beyond. And we'll be introducing the hallmark as the visual supporter of our PDO sparkling wines. What's then going to follow is obviously a press office, quite an intense press office activity, which will obviously be press packs sent out to the wider wine writers, who of course are great supporters of ours and advocates, and that will be explaining everything as well, along with a press release and examples of the hallmark. And this is going to be accompanied with a sampling campaign. So 2 or 3 bottles are going to be sent to these selected wine writers as well, to illustrate really the diversity of the wines that we produce as classic method wines, really kind of telling the story. It's sort of showing the expression of terroir and really what we're doing over here, and really embedding in everybody just what it is that we've been doing over the last number of years. Success that we have as a wine region, led by this this halo category. The other activity that Sarah's going to be doing are a couple of virtual masterclasses. Now these are slightly more intense, and they're to which are invited key members of the trade. So this will include master sommelier contacts of Sarah's, key wine writers, and retailers and restaurateurs, and as I mentioned, sommeliers as well. And this is slightly more sort of delving very deep. This involves about a dozen different wines to really show the category in its broadest level. She's going to be really getting a lot of very technical information, but also information about the producers, as well as the geography, the terroir, and all the rest of it. And that's a great way, she finds, to be incredibly effective, because it's a personal invitation. They get pretty much 100% success rate every time, and those people will go out and start talking about the subject matter, which obviously in our case is about classic method. So that's going to be very intense, but really very powerful way of getting it through the trade and the press. And another masterclass actually is going to be a new group of social media influencers. We've been working increasingly over the last few months with a group of social media influencers who, a lot of them actually focus a lot on Great Britain and the wines of Great Britain. And they have an increasing number of followers who are also increasingly following WineGB on its various channels. And we're very pleased that they're going to be reaching out in that sense. So that's what's going to be happening in the sort of near future. What I want to say, having mentioned about the sampling campaign, is to say an enormous thank you to the many producers that have supported it at this early stage. I think we've had just over 40 producers of differing sizes who have signed up to Sarah's call out for samples to use as she goes through the sampling campaign and these masterclasses. And I think what's really pleasing is the variety of producers there. So we've got some of the largest producers in the country, some of the hero brands, if you like, down to some smaller and emerging producers as well, who have already shown that they see value in this campaign at this very early stage of our promotion of this particular category. I think this is a very good opportunity now to lead on to Douglas, who, as one of the brands, has actually embraced this sort of from very early on. And Douglas, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about sort of your side of things, about the hallmark and what that means to you, as well as the campaign overall. So Douglas, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Julia. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, excellent, very good. Well, thank you. Yes, when I first heard about the hallmark and the initiative that was taken, I was very positive, because I think this is particularly the kind of work that should be undertaken by this organization, the WineGB. And one thing that is, an important part of trying to promote our industry is to have some sort of ambassadors. And I think WineGB is taking it upon themselves now to be the category ambassadors of English quality sparkling wine. I know you did say that we want to use the British in all aspects, but and that is fine with me, absolutely. English quality sparkling wine or British, whatever it is, but the ambassadorships to promote it and use this for marketing purposes, I thought was an excellent idea, and I was, really waiting for that to happen, to be honest. And I think, promoting the products is so important, and the hallmark by itself, we certainly jumped all on, and we are putting it on our labels for the next vintage that we are promoting. That's going to be the 2018 one. And it will help us to clearly put our product in a quality criteria. And that also in order to elevate the quality of British or English quality sparkling wine to the level it deserves. And I know, of course, that it is already being recognized as something which is definitely competing with all the top producers in the world. And we are doing that very well. But it needs, of course, a lot of support and help. And this is the way to do that. And I really think that it will help us definitely when we are trying to, export and sometimes have to justify the price levels. And of course, if you need to do that, you certainly want to be able to point out the difference of our quality production and what it means for the sparkling wine that we produce. And I think also it's important, and I feel very much it should help all producers of sparkling wine in this country to boost their confidence in enabling them to, or us, to actually charge value for money. And I think it's particularly important going forward when we see the production is increasing tremendously in this country, of course. And I know we are not allowed to talk prices, but we can do it on a general matter. And I think that is super important for the future, to give confidence to all producers to keep track on value for money, because that is, of course, the ultimate saying to clients at the end. But that said, I think this is a very, very good start. I absolutely endorse everything that you have been working with for the moment. But I also think it's a start of a much needed reform to the PDO system. And I don't know if Nick or you could sort of elaborate a bit on that, on the thoughts of the board of WineGB, because I think we need a new tier system promoting the quality. Because today, I think it is a little bit too easy to get the PDO, what it stands for. It doesn't really say much, to be honest, and because all our wine producing countries, if it's France with our AOC, or Italy with a DOC, or even Germany, Qualitätswein, or Spain's Reserva, different levels of quality. And in this early stage of the wine industry that England is, I think that is super important. And I would hope that we could sort of pursue this initiative to further enhance the criteria for the quality hallmark of Great British quality wines, the classic method. And I'm open for any discussions or questions or suggestions to that, but I will very much love to hear if you or Nick could say anything about my last point.
Nick, did you want to come in on the PDO, PGI element? It's still early days. We have to wait until the end of the year, or rather the beginning of next, don't we? For starters. You're on mute.
On mute. I mean, first of all, I think I should say that it is recognised that the current PDO is not fit for purpose. When you have, our top quality level wines only needing 9 months on lease, for example, it's not something which stands out as the top quality in the wine world. Obviously we've got Brexit, and discussions have already started between DEFRA and Dominic about how we move forward with the PDO. Initially, the PDO and PGI will just be replicated as they are at the moment as we come out of Brexit. But I can assure you it's absolutely key on the agenda to get that reviewed as soon as is practical. But it is going to take some time. You know, it does. This is a government, and we're going to have to review this through DEFRA and through the government channels. But it's definitely has a priority. I think the other thing which we're hoping to achieve is a designation of the production method on the label, a requirement, a legal requirement to do that. So at the moment, I think there's only a legal requirement to put aerated or something similar on labels. And we will try and make this on the front of label as well, so that you have to say whether it's classic method or Charmat method or aerated method. So I'm absolutely with you 100%, Douglas, but it is on the high on the agenda, but it is also going to take some time.
Right.
As we said, this is the beginning of what is a sort of long-term aim to achieve better labelling as much as improving the quality requirements through legislation as well. And yes, I mean, we stated at the very beginning that one of our aims was to ensure that, differentiating classic method from other sparkling methods, the best way of doing that is actually on the label as well, so that it is very clearly defined. So traditional method sparkling wines will be classic method. So wait and see. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, I can tell you, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Dominic Buckwell, who does an enormous amount of work behind the scenes for everybody in WineGB. He's our legal counsel. He advises on a great number of things that are happening at the moment, and he does have a day job as well. We're extremely fortunate to have him as one of the board directors. I hope that answers your question, Douglas, and I hope it addresses perhaps some questions that people had, our members as well. Coming back as a producer, Nick, sorry, I'm putting you back in the spotlight. If you'd like to change your hats, and as a producer, what the classic method might mean to you, to Albury Organic. And this brings in another aspect that we're introducing at the same time, which is around the sustainability mark as well.
Yeah, well, we're one of the initial vineyards that has had the sustainability accreditation, and we're delighted to have that. But I know that when, I talk to people who come to visit us for tours and tastings, and we did quite a lot of that, people are sort of, they first of all say, oh, what's the name for English champagne? And of course we haven't got one. And and it has been decided, and members have agreed that we're not going to have one either, certainly in the foreseeable future. But that being the case, I think it is really important to be able to explain to consumers and the trade for that matter, how you can identify quality wines, top quality wines in the UK, and how you can identify those that have qualified as sustainable wines as well. And for me, traditional method doesn't do it. And for me, PDO doesn't do it. It means absolutely nothing to the consumer. And so that's why, I can now talk confidently about classic method as an absolute sign of quality, and something that consumers should look out for. And indeed, the sustainability logo that will increasingly be used. And one thing we did talk about is to say, well, we've got so many logos and hallmarks and things, we really would like the option of having a combined classic and sustainability logo. So we've come up with a variant of that logo for people who qualify under the classic hallmark, and also have been awarded sustainability status by WineGB. And that's the one on the right that you see there as well. It's absolutely an option. All of these hallmarks are options. Nobody's saying that you've got to use it. But for those who want to, for those who are both classic method and also sustainable wines, then they'll be able to use that logo on the right. So I think that's that's it. It's part of the for me. It's part of the communication, primarily to the consumer. You know, I want to be able to, as Douglas says, you know, justify why these wines are special and what consumers should look out for when they're buying the wines.
And I would add as well that, of course, it's a way of helping the resellers, the hand sellers. So that's the sommeliers, the independent wine merchants, and even hopefully in due course through the larger retailers, through their websites and any shelf markers. It's their ability to also articulate that to their customers as well.
Julia, I think we've got a question that might be worthwhile just answering from Henry. Can
all traditional method.
Do you want me to answer that now? Try and answer that now?
Great. Yeah, absolutely. The floor's yours.
Okay, so in answer to the question, are all producers of traditional method sparkling wines in the UK eligible to use the hallmark? The answer is, to use the hallmark, you have to have PDO status as well. You can use the term classic method, and you can print that on your bottle if you are PDO or PGI. But to use the hallmark, at the moment, you have to have PDO status. The second part of the question, similar campaign for still wines. Still wines are absolutely on the agenda. There is a study going on at the moment, being led by Justin Howard-Sneed for WineGB, looking at the still wine marketplace. And we're surveying producers, retailers, influencers in the market to try and come to some understanding of what the opportunity is for still wines, English still wines in the UK, and what, if any, element of that we should be getting behind. And it's absolutely on the table that there, you know, the use of a hallmark or this hallmark could be applied to still wines too. But I think what we'll do is, you know, we're aiming to have that study completed by Christmas, and then I'm absolutely sure there'll be some consultation with the membership before we move forward on anything.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the last thing we want people to think is that we're putting absolutely everything into this and this alone. And, you know, I will reiterate what we have been saying all along, which is we will use the halo from classic method sparkling as a way to highlight the growing diversity and increasingly varied positioning of all wine styles produced from Great Britain. But we're starting with the one that has really put GB on the wine map. And we felt it was really important to make sure that we were to the best ability to protect what we have that we see as most precious. But it is a great opportunity to kind of elevate the whole positioning of GB wines overall in the market domestically, but increasingly overseas as well. Thank you very much, Nick. I hope Henry that's answered your question. I thought I'd move a little bit to the oh, it's Nick's dog. I was trying to work out.
It's my dog. I'm sorry for that. Well,
just
I'm not trying to. Can I ask you just add one thing, clarification to the hallmark usage? Wasn't it also necessary to be a member of WineGB to use it?
Okay. Do you want me to answer that, Julie?
Go for it. Yes. Yep.
So if you're a member of WineGB, you can use the hallmark free of charge. If you're not a member of WineGB, you have to license the hallmark, and the hallmark will be priced at a third of the price that you would otherwise pay to WineGB for membership, with per year, with a minimum of £250. So we want to encourage the general use of this, even if you're not a member of WineGB. As long as you qualify on all the other criteria, you can use it, but you'll have to pay for the privilege.
Thank you, Nick.
Does that answer your question, Douglas?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks both. So I just very, very briefly, I'm just going to show you a little bit about the variants of the classic hallmark, really to show the scope and the sort of variety of the iterations that are available. I've just put a few on the slides here. So she now trying to move the slides. There we go. So you can see that we've got the sort of standard Great British Classic method, and we've introduced different colorways. Importantly, really, just to keep in style with sort of luxury branding, but to give sufficient scope, hopefully, for people to incorporate it in either their marketing materials or, for example, in Douglas's case, to incorporate in the label. Douglas, actually, it'd be just interesting to know, you're putting this on your back label, are you? How are you going to be using the hallmark, and which one are you going to be using?
Oh wow, that's a very good question. First answer is that I know it's going to be on the back label.
Yeah.
But when it comes to well, I'm not colorblind, but I know we are using two different colors based on whether it's a rosé or a classic brut or blanc de blanc, whatever it is. So we have two of them, and I think they are called greenish or something like that. Yeah.
No, that's no problem. But
but they are going to be on the back labels, and we were waiting to print our labels. But it's all done now. Well, it's not done, but it's under production.
Excellent, thank you. So you can see that there are various iterations. So one is, just as you see, the Great British Classic method. There is a signifier, which is literally just the actual logo itself. But we can then move on to a producer version, if you want to put that. And then if there's space, we've included a very basic manifesto. Now, I very much hope that the classic method will sort of grow into a deeper, more detailed manifesto, which is a kind of commitment to all the things that I know producers are committed to, which is the quality of their production. Sustainability, their commitment to sustainability perhaps could be included here as well. But at this juncture, we've just put the sort of three basic components that make classic method, which you can see about, you know, where the grapes come from, that secondary fermentation is involved, and that there's some degree of age leasing as well. Now, I wanted to bring in some examples of the applications to give you a bit more of a visual idea of some of the ways in which it can be used. And this is going to apply to both producers and their packaging, and then also I'll show you in a moment how it could extend to other marketing materials and working with the trade. So just very simply, and you can see down here, whoops, sorry, the bottom, you know, putting the hallmark down on the back label. And then other applications could include use on a website, any publicity material, even actually, you know, as part of your, you know, visitors facilities as well, and also where it could possibly appear on a phone on your website, as it were, as well. And then this moves in really to some of the application examples for the wider trade as well, because we wanted to show that this actually can be used to support any promotion that any trade, be it on trade or off trade, and examples of where they could possibly use it too. So these are just examples at the moment. So, for example, on a menu, applying classic method if they've got a list of their classic method wines. Similarly, actually, shelf talkers, that's more of an independent wine merchant. So using that to highlight the range of of classic method wines, and then also on an e-commerce site as well. So that's really, I'll just go out of that. Those are just really a very brief example of some of the examples where you can actually apply this. I'm sure some of you have already seen it, but the toolkit is available to download from the website, and it includes the iterations concerning the sustainability logo as well. Now, one thing that I just wanted to outline is because it's one question that may well crop up, is how do you, what do you do next? Now, Douglas, jumped straight to us after the last talk, and so we were able to work with him. But as of tomorrow, there will be some additional pages on the website, which will firstly, obviously outline the whole campaign and why we're doing it, and talking about classic method. also introducing the hallmark and how you can actually download the various assets. And you can do that directly from the website. What you have to do in order that we can record who is actually downloading them, you have to complete a form first, which also asks you to have read the terms of use, which will also be up on the website as of tomorrow. It'll be on the trade pages and on the members area of the website as well. So those are definitely worth reading. They're fairly lengthy, but it's something to use. If you want to use them for printing purposes on, say, marketing materials, or even if it's label printing, I know that there's a slightly different process to actually download EPS versions, but the JPEGs and the PNGs are going to be available. We anticipate that tomorrow, after the press conference, there will be some coverage in the trade press, and we're going to make the standard hallmark, what I call the standard hallmark, which is the grey with the green with the grey writing. That's the one that we're going to use as the flagship, if you like. So I would expect that that'll be used probably more widely. And that will all be live from tomorrow. Now, I'm just looking to see if there are any questions on the thing. I think it's been covered. The label variants look really good. Yes, good printing. That's a very, thank you, Nick Room, for just pointing out you need to request very good printing and a high reliable standard to ensure brand identity, but also make sure these emblems are strong on the retail shelf. Now, one thing that I'd just like to talk a little bit about the timing, because obviously all of this was going to have been launched a little bit earlier, but for all the reasons that Nick pointed out earlier, things were inevitably delayed because of COVID. But we really felt very strongly that we needed to show that as an industry, we were still looking ahead, we were looking forward. But one thing which we are going to be announcing in a bit more detail at the end of the week is actually we have an opportunity to put this classic method and all the messaging around it and the communications around it to good use in actually a broader consumer campaign as well, because of course we've got Christmas. I'd like to say now that we're working on what we think is a very exciting campaign that's going to be run primarily digitally for obvious reasons, but this is going to reach out to the trade and to the wine writers, that are both consumer and trade writers, with the help of the PR support that we're actually getting through the press office of the Classic Method campaign. But actually, we're also going to be doing something quite very strongly through all our social media platforms as well. So more about that later. But it is going to be centered around sparkling wines for Christmas for very obvious reasons. It's very seasonal, and we have an enormous opportunity to actually use the Classic Method and, as I say, all its messaging around that. So we'll be able to put it to very good use really very quickly. So I, for one, am very excited that this is happening now. So in fact, timing wise, I think it's worked out possibly better than we had hoped. I really do want to thank sort of Sarah Abbott, who's been working immensely hard on this campaign all the way throughout. Her experience, as I say, with working with other regions has really given us an outsider's perspective of how things can be very effectively run and how to speak to those very key members of the trade and the press audience as well. Now, there were one or two questions that had sort of cropped up before. One was, when can I start using the hallmark on my wines? Well, as Douglas said, he's actually going to the printers already with his next vintage of wines. Douglas, when are you expecting those wines to be released and hopefully on the shelf?
By end November.
End of November. So they'll be part of a part of Christmas, your Christmas promotion.
That's the plan.
I know from another producer that whilst they're probably not going to put them on their labels immediately because they don't yet need to go to print with their labels, they actually want to introduce the Classic Method hallmark sort of signifier in their I'm getting very distracted by that lovely dog in their marketing materials, which is great. Just to let you know, of course, we will be doing a lot more communications from the press conference tomorrow, because it's a question of sort of, you know, having everybody resonate with what this is. So our job is to be talking to the wine press a lot, to be able to talk increasingly about it. And then, of course, introducing Classic Method as much as Great Britain, Great British and all the rest of it into the way we communicate, which, of course, we do a lot with the outside world, so to speak. Were there any other questions? I'm just wondering if I've missed anything. Nick, have I missed anything out? I know we were. He's on mute again.
I don't think so, Julia. I think we did have a question about, are you going to produce labels to put on, stickers to put on labels for bottles that have already been labelled? And the answer is we don't know. I think we will if there's a demand for it. So perhaps, if you do feel that you would want some stickers for bottles that have already been labelled, please email Julia to let her know with some idea of quantity. And then we'll take a look at that in the next few days and see if there's a demand, and we'll look in getting some printed. Excellent.
Thank you very much, Nick. I'm pleased to say, I think this is a good thing, but we haven't actually received any questions, which hopefully means that we've been as succinct as we possibly can. There's a huge amount to read on the websites. I say websites because I mentioned the trade element. So we're communicating in a tone of voice to the trade and the press, as we are addressing it on a more practical level in the members area as well. We have got an all-out consumer-facing set of pages which will be arriving sort of after these two. Our priority is obviously to go live with the trade and with the members site tomorrow. And we will post up a press release that's going to be shared with the wine press and the trade tomorrow. That'll be up on the website tomorrow as well. I think we can probably safely assume that there will be quite a bit of press coverage in the trade press primarily towards the end of the week. And as I say, at the end of the week, we'll also be able to announce a little bit more about putting classic method into practice through the Christmas campaign, which is aimed at the consumer. So I think that probably wraps it up. I think we've done it in rather record time. Douglas, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add. I just want to thank you so much for sort of sharing your experiences from the word go and why you have seen that there is a significance to bring in classic hallmark or the classic method to your wines. We look forward to seeing them on the bottle. Thank you. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add.
No, absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Julia and Nick and everyone who's participated. And again, I certainly think this is a very, very, very good initiative. That is the start of something that can be even better later on once we get the PDO under control.
Thanks very much. Nick, I wonder if there are any final points you wanted to make.
No, I don't think so. Just watch this space in terms of the Christmas campaign. Julia's got something really exciting to announce in the next week. So keep an eye on the marketing bulletins.
Yes, please do. And again, thank you to everybody who've tuned in. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me, julia@winegb.co.uk, but I'm sure you all know that. Look out for the ongoing communications. As I say, we're laying the foundation stones. This isn't going to happen in just a few months. This is something with a long-term aim, and I think will result in some really very really highlighting our industry overall, but primarily and firstly our halo brand to the outside world, both domestically and overseas. So thank you very much for your time and your patience, and thank you both to Douglas and to Nick for joining in on this discussion as well. And have a very good evening, everybody, and we'll report back after the press conference tomorrow. So thank you, and goodbye to your lovely dog as well, Douglas.
Thank you. Woof, woof.
Bye, everyone.
Wonderful. Goodbye. Good evening, everyone.
Bye. Bye-bye.